The city of Madison says taxpayer dollars spent on 24/7 security at an apartment complex is money well spent. We'll have updates on issues over on Tree Lane.
And the Badgers make their return to the NCAA tournament this afternoon. We'll take a look at how they plan to get around and over the Oregon Ducks.
From the Channel3000.com Alert Center, this is News 3 Now this morning.
Good morning and welcome to News 3 Now this morning on this Friday, March 22nd. Our Hattie McLean off on vacation today, so the ever sunny Chris Reese is joining us today with a similar sounding forecast.
Well, yeah, we'll try to keep it that way. How about that? High pressure is in control for us, folks, and that means sinking air. And when you have sinking air, that actually keeps sunshine around because it doesn't allow clouds to develop. You have to have rising air for clouds. So high pressure keeps the pressure down on the air to rise, and that does mean more sunshine for us. We did have a weak little cold front that came through last night. That's going to keep temperatures a little bit colder this afternoon. That's because winds will be out of the north. And as long as we have that northerly wind, we will be just a little bit cooler. We're at 35 right now. Temperatures still have been dropping out there this morning. We were at 39 less than 2 hours ago. Winds still out of the north and northwest at 9 miles per hour. 34 as you work your way over towards Janesville. Waukesha is at 30 and Black River Falls is at 28. So most of us seeing temperatures hovering between the upper 20s and the low to mid 30s. Yesterday, we saw a high of 51 degrees. Not too shabby, not too bad. Today, we won't be quite that warm. We'll see those temperatures a couple degrees colder, right around 46 for your afternoon highs, which oddly enough is actually right where we should be for this time of the year. So it is a perfect afternoon for a March 22nd, full of sunshine. More cars starting to get out on the roads at the 6 o'clock hour as well. If you are headed out, so far, no big issues showing up on the roadways. Of course, Stoughton Road stoplights always causing just a few brake lights, but once the light turns green, of course, it gets better. So yeah, we're gonna keep things that way. Again, though, do be prepared if you do travel Verona Road. There was a little bit of a lane switcheroo last night that caught me at 3 o'clock in the morning, just listening to my music, driving around, and then that was a surprise, but I'm here.
And there are
So,
the cones.
Yes, there will be cones. Just want to make sure everyone knows about that.
Yep, and we'll have a little bit more about that coming up in a few minutes. Chris, thanks.
My pleasure.
We start this half hour with news overnight that 2 U.S. troops have died in Afghanistan. Right now, we don't know exactly where the operation was taking place or who the soldiers were fighting at the time. There are about 14,000 service members in Afghanistan helping local forces fight the Taliban and the Islamic State. The names of those service members are being withheld until family can be notified.
Back in Madison, Mayor Paul Soglin says police calls to Tree Lane apartments have gone down in recent weeks, adding the city is, quote, through the worst of it when it comes to problems there. He was joined by Police Chief Mike Koval and other people involved in the project to talk about the hundreds of crimes and disturbances that have been reported since Tree Lane Apartments opened last summer. It primarily serves individuals and families who have dealt with, that is, homelessness. Now, the mayor says the situation is starting to improve there, in part due to added security and case management, which the city's now paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for. Chief Koval says he's optimistic about the way things are going.
A lot of lessons have been learned and constructively embraced, and I think that now moving forward, the trajectory of the calls for service are less compelling, less urgent, and certainly less magnified in terms of their frequency and scope of our attention.
So 2 tenants have been evicted from Tree Lane Apartments, according to officials, but the majority of residents, they say, are good tenants who pay their rent.
The mayor also weighing in on the controversy at the Henry Vilas Zoo as the county and zoological society there work through a dispute over their contract. The dispute is over concerns the county has with the society's financial practices, particularly whether money raised on zoo grounds is being used for zoo activities. County officials say an endowment was created without their knowledge, but Mayor Soglin tells News 3 Now he has no issue with that.
So let's be very clear about this. The Zoological Society is in the right place in terms of protecting a large endowment, because when the economy goes bad and the donors at that point can't write out those checks because their investments have crashed, that's when you need the endowment.
Mayor Soglin said he would like to see the county and the society explain their differences and patch things up.
More local news this morning from downtown Madison. As you might notice, a fairly drastic aesthetic change made to a historic building along State Street.
Just a really sad situation. It's awful. I mean, the building is devalued. It just goes to show that permits and processes are very important. You know, with the city, it's got to be done.
That right there is Stephen Manley. He owns B-Side Records just across the street from the building that formerly housed the Sacred Feather. The person now renting that building painted it black without the city's permission. Now the owners have 2 weeks to remove the paint. If that doesn't happen, the Urban Design Commission will step in and have to figure out what to do next. Even though it's not an official historical building, it is in an area designated as the Downtown Core District. The Madison Police Department will welcome its latest group of new officers later today. It comes as the department and many others across the country struggle to recruit and retain people to work on the force. Chief Mike Koval says there is still a negative perception of police that's led to a decline in interest in serving, and he stressed to us earlier this year that even with a shortage of applicants, his department is more interested in the quality of recruits than the quantity. This year's class of 37 recruits includes 13 women and 9 officers of color. The graduation ceremony starts at 3 o'clock this afternoon.
There is even more concerning news out there for any of us who are a part of a farming family.
You have to be really careful what you spend your money on right now. There isn't a lot of room for a big mistake.
That right there is Matt Krenz. He's a dairy farmer up in Barron County and one of many struggling to make ends meet. The Wisconsin Policy Forum says the number of small farms filing for bankruptcy here in Wisconsin has more than doubled in the last 5 years. The study takes a look at how low milk prices are impacting those bankruptcy numbers. Prices have dropped more than 13% since 2008 and 33% since the most recent high in 2014. Meanwhile, bankruptcies went from 22 that year to 50 in 2017.
6:07 right now, and you just heard Chris mention this, but if your morning commute takes you down Verona Road, you might want to give yourself a little extra time to get to work or school today. You're taking a live look at the Beltline from Verona Road this morning. So that's the Beltline going over top of Verona Road. Work on that stretch resumed overnight, and northbound traffic between Williamsburg Way and Raymond Road had to be shifted to new pavement on the west side of the highway. Project managers are encouraging people to leave a little early this morning, maybe be a little more alert, as Chris had to be, of the traffic shift, and reduce the speed, or reduce your speed. The limit there is just 40 miles per hour now through that stretch. Construction's also starting up again along an area that was riddled with crashes last summer. This is along the interstate. I-3990 near Beloit and Janesville will see construction start again in early April. Roughly 13 miles of the interstate will see delays over the next 4 months or so. The DOT says speed limits will be lowered in those construction zones as well.
Today is the big day, Badger fans. The men's basketball team is back in the big dance after missing last year's NCAA tournament. Here they are throwing up some half-court shots in San Jose during practice this week. Looking pretty good, boys. Last year was the first time in 19 years they missed the tournament. That means for the team's sophomores, like guard Brad Davison, it's the first time experiencing March Madness after growing up watching it on TV.
It's the best time of year. I think growing up, everyone has March Madness. It's kind of like I always used to say, it's like that's the best holiday of the year. This 3 weeks in March that you get to play basketball. You get to watch the best basketball on the biggest stage.
The Badgers play at 3:30 this afternoon on TBS. Jay Wilson will have a breakdown of what we can expect coming up in our next half hour.
All right, your time right now is 6:08, and parents never want to hear their child will be born with something that could make life more difficult. But if you ask the family Christina Laurie's introducing us to this morning, having a child with Down syndrome can teach us all that we're not so different.
Really looking forward to that story. But first, Chris Reese is in for Hattie this morning with a pretty nice start to the weekend in store for us. We'll check in with him next when News 3 Now This Morning returns.
Well, happy Friday, folks. You're waking up, and eventually, once the sun starts to rise, I do think you're in for a treat this morning. A beautiful day ahead, and we're starting out with temperatures that are a little mild into the 30s, though some of us are below that 30-degree mark. Black River Falls at 28 degrees this morning, 30 over in Waukesha. We do sit at 35 right here in Madison. Winds out of the north-northwest at 9 miles per hour, and that is behind a cold front that did come through last night. It's going to keep us just a little bit on the chillier side today, although it's normal. Temperatures will top out right around 46 degrees after this afternoon, and that is where we should be for this time of the year. So that cold front actually keeping temperatures in check instead of them being above average as they have been for the past couple of days. And we still do have that northerly wind component just about for all of us here in the state of Wisconsin as a whole. But behind that weak cold front coming through, high pressure is there, and that is what's going to keep that sunshine around, especially for the first half of the weekend. And that's going to allow things to be colder overnight tonight as high pressure is right on top of us. Now, as we move towards Sunday, watch this region of low pressure across the plains. A warm front is going to develop on the northern side of that. That warm air starting to move over that cold air we have in place. It's going to lead to some developing cloud cover along with some fog and some showers into early on Sunday. But then high pressure comes out of Canada, and it means business, folks. So it is just going to squash out that moisture in that system as a whole, and that's going to bring more sunshine, but colder temperatures towards the start of next week. For your Friday, let's go ahead and plan it all out for you. We'll see those temperatures around 39 by lunchtime, topping out around 46 this afternoon and staying in the 40s throughout the early evening. Now, overnight tonight, as that high pressure is right on top of us, we will be rather chilly. We'll see those temperatures cooling down towards about 23 degrees. And then with a southerly wind component onto Saturday, warming up into the 50s. But then on Monday, we'll actually struggle to get out of the 30s, and then temperatures gradually warming back up towards the end of the week. Perhaps 58 by Thursday, maybe a shot at 60 degrees. Of course, we will watch that very closely just to see how things shape up for us, but at least we're going to have plenty of sunshine. Outside of that rain chance that we do have coming in on Sunday, I think most of next week features plenty of sunshine as well. Perhaps some clouds coming in Thursday night with a rain chance late Thursday night and into early on Friday. Now let's go to Josh Tim with your First Alert traffic. How's it going, buddy?
Yeah, it's a great start on the Beltline for the early commuters. No delays showing up yet in either direction at this point. Other roads here in Dane County not looking too bad right now. Just a few of the usual brake lights on Stoughton Road and Verona Road approaching the Beltline ramps. Things are moving well downtown on campus. Plan on volume increasing over the next hour or so. And other routes coming in, including the interstate coming into Madison, they're moving along at the usual speeds with no major crashes or delays. Your First Alert traffic, I'm Josh Tim.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you, Chris. So we just celebrated World Down Syndrome Day yesterday, but the work continues for doctors trying to figure out what causes the condition and how to best treat it.
There are a number of local resources available to make life with Down syndrome easier. Christina Lauria is here this morning with that story. Good morning, Christina.
Good morning, ladies. Babies born with Down syndrome are born with an extra copy of chromosome 21, which changes the way their brains and bodies develop. It can be hard for them and their families to live normal lives, but it doesn't have to be. We spent some time this week with a local mom and her son, Augie, who are thriving. Meet Augie.
I'm for sure a better person now than I was before I had him.
His mom, Melissa, found out at 14 weeks pregnant he had a high chance of having Down syndrome.
I didn't know what it was going to be like raising a child with Down syndrome.
3 years later, she does. Here's what she didn't know then.
Life was going to be just fine. And it's proven to be even more than fine. It's pretty great.
That's thanks to 2 Madison organizations. The Madison Area Down Syndrome Society provides support programs, events, and advocacy around town.
Connecting with other families, I think, is key.
Its Parents First Call program pairs first-time Down syndrome families with those who are farther along on raising a kid with DS.
Having a family that we could hear, you know, what is it really like versus what you might read on the internet or in a book.
Gigi's Playhouse, a Down Syndrome Achievement Center, is another local resource working to give people with DS like Augie the same opportunities as everyone else in every area of life. Nowadays, life looks pretty normal for the Shutwell family.
differences are okay, that we're all unique and we all have unique things to offer this world.
Augie's taught them a lot about raising a kid with Down syndrome.
He is more like my other kids than different, or more alike than different.
Above all, he's taught them DS is no disability.
He is more amazing than I could have ever imagined.
Now, Melissa has some advice to families who are caught off guard by a diagnosis of any kind. First, accept what you're feeling. Know that it's a journey, that your feelings will change, and there are lots of positive things in your future. The Shutwell family is certainly a testament to that. Augie's just started preschool this past year.
What a little cutie pie. Those glasses and that smile. I mean,
I'm melting just watching that video of him.
And it's a great message to anyone. I think we all know someone with Down syndrome. I have a friend back home named Steve. I've known him since I was 7 years old. I never knew that he was different than me until we put a label on this, but they're just as happy, wonderful, and amazing as anyone else.
All of us. We're all more alike than we are different.
Yeah.
I loved that.
Most definitely. Christina,
takeaway.
thank you so much for sharing that story and sharing those pictures of Augie. We can't get enough.
I know. More.
Yeah, thank you to that family.
All right, 6:17 your time now. There is a World War II veteran in our area that's celebrating a pretty big milestone soon. Coming up, we'll tell you how you can help him have a very happy 100th birthday.
That is awesome. It's been a much-deserved quiet week in the News 3 Now weather office, and it looks like that will continue for the next couple of days. Knock on some wood here. The sun's starting to come up, and Chris will have another check on our forecast when News 3 Now this morning continues.
Mid-30s as you are waking up and heading out the door this morning. And we're starting to see the first glimpses of the sun coming above the horizon. The temperature 35 degrees right now. Winds coming out of the north and northwest at about 9 miles per hour. That's going to keep us just a little bit cooler today. Expect those highs right around 46 degrees, which is right on par for where we should be for this time of the year. No cloud cover truly expected that can produce any kind of precipitation. Any cloud cover today will be mainly decorator, puffy cumulus clouds out in the sky. If you are going to school today, perhaps the last day before spring break, temperatures at drop-off time will be in the mid-30s. But by the time you pick your kids up later on today, expect those temperatures right around 44 degrees. Leah.
Thank you so much, Chris. 6:22 your time now. The family of a World War II veteran is asking for your help to give him the 100th birthday celebration he deserves. Laverne Borchardt is a U.S. Army veteran from Fort Atkinson. He'll be turning 100 on May 27th, and his granddaughter is asking the community to send him birthday notes and cards. Great idea there. You can send letters to that address right there on your screen. It's also up on our website, channel3000.com.
I love that so much. All right, in Lafayette County, a week of conversations about mental wellness culminates today with high schoolers taking on those tough topics. Darlington High School is holding a mental health summit all day long, inviting speakers to talk about the issues teens are facing. A nonprofit called Mental Health Matters of Lafayette County has been hosting a number of events this week, including a poster contest, a session focused on first responders, an author talking about his own struggles, and a vigil. If you are looking for resources in that community, you can reach out to the group on Facebook.
We want to let you know about a special event happening Monday night right here on News 3 Now to help get your consumer questions answered. Our Call for Action volunteers will be in the office Monday night starting at 5 p.m. to take your questions and mediate on your behalf with any company or business you might be having a problem with. I'll be joining those volunteers with live reports to show you what our CFA team can help with. That's happening Monday night from 5 until 7 right here on News 3 Now.
Your time right now is 6:23, and Governor Tony Evers did not waste any time after a judge ruled that laws designed to scale back his powers are unconstitutional. Republicans are vowing to fight that decision in court.
We'll have more on that. Plus, the big brouhaha over an ad campaign that started on Super Bowl Sunday is now spilling over into court. That story, along with more local news, is up next on News 3 Now this morning.
Governor Tony Evers is acting quickly after a judge throws out the laws passed to limit his power, while Republicans say they will plan to fight that ruling.
And the Badgers have plenty of history with their opponent in the first round of the NCAA tournament. We'll have a report from San Jose ahead of this afternoon's latest showdown with Oregon.
From the Channel3000.com Alert Center, this is News 3 Now this morning.
Good morning and welcome to the final half hour of News 3 Now this morning on this Friday, March 22nd. And aside from it being Friday, we have a lot of reasons to celebrate that game against Oregon and the sun in today's forecast.
Most definitely. Let's turn it right over to Chris Reese. He is in for Hattie this morning out on the patio. Chris, how's it feeling out there?
It's feeling rather great. Lots of birds out here chirping this morning. I feel a little bit like Snow White, per se, just hearing the sounds of life out here. And it's going to be a very beautiful Friday in store for a lot of folks. The sun's starting to rise this morning. In fact, you are looking from our station camera right now, that orange glow on the horizon. Not a lot of cloud cover out there. Any cloud cover is mainly north and east of where we are here in south central Wisconsin. Temperatures mainly in the 30s for us this morning. There are a couple spots that are starting to dip down into the upper 20s, but as the sun rises, those temperatures will do the exact same thing, especially as we push forward through the rest of your morning. 35 here in Madison, winds coming out of the north and northwest at 9 miles per hour. It's a northwesterly wind that's going to keep us just a little bit colder today. Normally we see our highs right around 46 this time of the year, and that's exactly where we will be. The past couple of days, though, we've seen those temperatures into the 50s. But plan your day knowing that we are going to see plenty of sunshine as well, and that sunshine could linger into the rest of the weekend as well, guys. So it's going to be a pretty nice day.
We don't mind hearing that sunshine will linger, Chris, because we've been talking so much about snow or ice or rain lingering.
It feels good in the weather department. I will tell you that much. We are finally able to take a deep breath and just roll on with Mother Nature.
Well deserved.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
My pleasure.
Almost 6:30 your time now. We start this half hour with the latest on the investigation into how the Boeing 737 MAX 8 was ever allowed to fly. That's the plane model that's been involved in 2 deadly crashes in the past few months. All Boeing 737 MAX 8s remain grounded while investigators look for clues into what went wrong. CBS News says the Justice Department's fraud unit has subpoenaed records, documents, and data, all concerning the approval process for that jet. If it's revealed that Boeing knew there was a problem and either didn't resolve it or didn't reveal it to the FAA, criminal charges could be filed.
Back here in Wisconsin, Republican leaders at the state capitol are promising to appeal a ruling blocking laws passed in last year's lame duck session. A Dane County judge issued a temporary injunction yesterday saying sessions like that are not allowed under the state constitution. The laws passed in December limited the powers of incoming Democrats Governor Tony Evers and Attorney General Josh Kaul. Now, within hours of the ruling, the governor ordered the Attorney General to pull Wisconsin out of a federal lawsuit challenging the Affordable Care Act. That's something both had promised to do during their campaigns, but it was prohibited under the lame duck laws.
We've contended all along that the will of the people had been messed with by the special session, extraordinary session, and I'm happy that it has reached this point.
The governor says he does need a little more time to digest the ruling before making more moves. That could include possibly weighing in on 82 confirmations made by some of Governor Walker's appointees during that lame duck session. Republicans called the ruling disappointing but not surprising, and they will likely call for a stay of that ruling in the near future.
The state is suing a technology company for breach of contract after they claim the company was paid more than $14 million and completed only 17% of their project. This is an update to a story News 3 Now Investigates first told you about last year. The Department of Employee Trust Funds is suing Vitech Systems, Inc., claiming they didn't properly complete work on a new benefit system for state employees. But in a statement sent to News 3 Now yesterday by Vitech, they claim instead that the state wrongfully terminated the project last year after expanding it too much. The company intends to get that case dismissed and seek $14.3 million in damages from the state.
The corn syrup quarrel is now heading to court as 2 of the biggest beer companies in the world continue to fight over a series of ads. Miller Coors is now suing Anheuser-Busch, saying their St. Louis-based rival is trying to scare people away from drinking Miller Lite and Coors Light by pointing out that those beers contain corn syrup. Now, those TV ads and billboards have been running for about 2 months now. They were originally Super Bowl ads. Corn syrup is used in the fermentation process by both Miller Coors and Anheuser-Busch in some of their beers. But Miller says none of the syrup actually remains after fermentation. Miller Coors says Anheuser-Busch is taking advantage of health-conscious individuals who may confuse that corn syrup with high fructose corn syrup that's found in most sodas.
Quite the conundrum. All right, more local news this morning. Less than 2 weeks away from spring elections, we're taking some time to tell you a little bit more about your options for Madison mayor. Satya Rhodes Conway is a former 3-term city alder and now manages the Mayor's Innovation Project over at UW-Madison, where she works with city leaders from across the country to improve policy. She says that job experience makes her stand out over current Mayor Paul Soglin.
He's been mayor for 22 of the last 40 years. Yeah. And it's clear he loves the city and has served it well. But do we want status quo or do we want to move forward? And I think that's really the choice.
Now, Soglin says he's not the status quo candidate, rather the improvement candidate. He says in his last 8 years as mayor, Madison has climbed to the top of the list of best cities in the U.S., pointing to improvements in housing and racial equity.
I'd like to continue with that work. This is not easy stuff. It doesn't come from just studying. It comes from actually having management skills, the ability to engage the private sector. And I'd really like 4 more years to embed and finish the job.
Our colleague Keely Arthur sat down with both candidates for extensive interviews. You can find those over on channel3000.com. All right, 6:34 your time now. We're hoping the Badgers are putting on their dancing shoes this morning.
Yeah, they have a little something to prove, with a lot of sports commentators predicting Wisconsin will be upset this afternoon. Jay Wilson's keeping the optimism, though, which is a little easier from sunny California. Here's his report.
Well, the way the Badgers have been going lately, we don't know what to expect from them when they face Oregon. And come to think of it, we really don't know what to expect from Oregon. The Ducks suddenly got red hot. They've won 8 in a row. And they present a lot of problems, a lot of big problems. They start 6'2", 6'9", 6'9", 6'9", 6'9".
You know, we obviously do things all year long to negate length and how big guys are inside and the interior, but we're going to have to just really execute those things tomorrow.
Their length, we're going to try to use that to our advantage more than their advantage. So I think that with the right movement and the ball movement and things like that, I think that we can get open shots.
Well, one thing we know about Wisconsin is that they've been inconsistent on offense, but they are very, very good on defense. And what we know about Oregon, they've been inconsistent on offense, and they're very, very good on defense.
You know, it's 2 teams that are trying to get back on track. I think everybody's predicting it to be a low-scoring game just because, you know, of 2 styles that, you know, have kind of led everybody to believe that.
We've seen other shot blockers and people that will fly around and alter that. So we have to make sure we're cognizant of it, but at the same time, we can't overcook it, so to speak, and we still have to play and do the things that make us good around the rim.
Of course, Wisconsin and Oregon are no strangers to meeting in the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Wisconsin beat the Ducks in 2014 and 2015. Both times, Wisconsin was on the way to the Final Four. At SAP Center in San Jose, Jay Wilson, News 3 Now this morning.
Thank you very much, Jay. There is plenty of basketball before and after the Badgers game to catch right here on News 3 Now. You can catch another Big Ten team in action when Iowa takes on Cincinnati just after 11 a.m. That's followed by Tennessee and Colgate, and then later on, the championship favorite and #1 overall seed, Duke, will play North Dakota State. That happens just after 6 tonight, and CBS's coverage will wrap up tonight with Central Florida against VCU.
Because of those games, there are a couple of changes to our newscast schedule you should know about. There will be no News 3 Now at noon today, and if you're a fan of the CBS soap operas, those storylines will pick right back up where they left off on Monday. In the evenings, News 3 at Now will air at 5:30, immediately following our 5 p.m. newscast. News 3 Now at 10 will start a little closer to 11 once the final game of the night is done.
Once again, Badgers play right around 3:30 over on TBS.
Ready for that?
Yeah, it has been a week now since we had to tell you about a mass shooting at 2 mosques in New Zealand and the 50 victims of that terror attack. We will show you how that country is mourning coming up in the morning sprint.
And we are all about the girl power here on News 3 Now this morning. Coming up, we'll tell you about a group of girls in a sport usually associated with boys who are getting ready to prove they're some of the best in the state. All right, take a look at this gorgeous
Wow.
sunrise photo from Candy. I have to say, the prettiest part about this picture is her farm. She says it's a 105-year-old active farm on their family farm. I just love that story.
That is awesome. It almost doesn't look real, right?
Right.
The pink skies there, but these sunrises have been pretty spectacular. Thank you, Candy, for walking out and making sure
Yeah.
we get to soak it in a little bit more. What does your morning look like? Take a picture and post it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is. Use the hashtag MyNews3Morning. Leah and I share our favorites every morning here on the program. So we have an update to a pretty awesome story about a group of really strong girls down in Southwest Wisconsin.
That's an understatement. We first told you about these young wrestlers at Iowa Grant a couple of months ago. Many of them stay in the sport, even though there's no girls-only sanctioned state championship in high school, because they're hoping to break down the stereotype that only boys are good at wrestling. Well, more than a dozen of those girls are now competing at a youth state finals here in Madison this weekend, including Delia Collins. We talked to her last fall. Take a listen.
A lot of girls and a lot of boys, and I would say my toughest enemies are the girls. I just like being a girl out there on the mat, showing that girls can do the same thing.
That's right, girl, and that's exactly what she's doing. She's one of 15 girls across our area who are competing at the youth state finals. That competition starts today at 11 and runs through tomorrow. You better believe we're rooting for them.
I certainly hope that we'll have an update on Monday to share. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So whether you are headed to a wrestling tournament or maybe a Badger watch party, the weather's looking pretty good for your Friday. Chris has more of the same as well. Some sun and seasonal temperatures in your first alert forecast next.
But first, it's March 22nd. We want to say happy birthday to Vincent, Austin, Avenel, Kennedy, and all the kiddos turning 3 today. Thanks so much for celebrating with us right here on News 3 Now this morning.
You're taking a live look this morning on the west side of town here. This is from the WISC-TV Skycam. We are looking toward that beautiful sunrise that'll happen right before 7 o'clock this morning officially. Chris is in for Hattie this morning with plenty more where that came from sunshine-wise. That's coming up in just a little bit. So plenty of us are checking over our brackets this morning to see how we did on the first day of the NCAA tournament. I know I did. It turns out Governor Tony Evers still doing pretty well. His office publicly released his bracket as well as Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes's bracket yesterday. The governor is a Badger alum, staying true to his roots, a little biased here. He picked the Badgers to win it all. The Lieutenant Governor's bracket might be in a little trouble. He picked Marquette to make it to the national championship game, and they lost to Murray State yesterday.
So even if you're not as optimistic as Evers about the Badgers' odds this year, you have a Badger to thank for your brackets. Harold Olson was an All-American basketball player for the Badgers way back in the 19-teens, leading Wisconsin to a national title in 1915. After graduating, he coached and then joined the NCAA basketball committee, where he came up with the idea of a playoff tournament to crown a national champion. The first tournament was held in 1939 and included 8 teams and lost $2,600. It's since grown to 68 teams and now generates millions of dollars in revenue every year. I think I'm putting him to shame as a Badger alum without a bracket.
That is, I think that's all right. I think that's all right. It is a really cool stat, though, to kind of think about that they had such a hand in such a big event now in Workpool. Let's turn it over to Chris Reese and see if his bracket is fair and okay. Did you participate in the Workpool here?
Leah, don't feel bad. I am a man from Kentucky, and I don't even have a bracket. And down in Kentucky, like, basketball is life and blood. And hey, at least a Kentucky team pulled an upset yesterday with Murray State. But for us, in the meantime, I'm staying in my lane with the weather because that is something I know a little bit about. And we're going to have a lot of sunshine out there today. High pressure is going to be sliding down out of Canada, providing a lot of sunshine. We did have this weak cold front move through overnight, and that's gradually pushing to the south. It's keeping temperatures a little bit colder across the upper Midwest this morning. You can actually see where the core of that colder temperature or that colder air is. Check out the 20s and 30s just across northern Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan, and into southern Canada. Then we start to lighten things up a little bit in our temperature contours as you work your way further towards the south there. But temperatures mainly are in the 30s for a lot of us. 31 in Watertown, 32 in Juneau. We do sit at 35 right now here in Madison, and here comes the sun. Winds coming out of the north and northwest at 9 miles per hour. This is what's going to work to actually keep us a little bit cooler as we go through the afternoon. We'll only see those temperatures topping out into the 40s instead of the 50s like we've seen for the past couple of days. But oddly enough, 46, our forecast high, is right where we should be for this time of the year. Now watch this high across the plains. That's going to slide just towards the north and east as we go through the weekend, eventually allowing winds to become more southerly. At the same time, this region of low pressure is coming out of the plains. That southerly wind is going to allow a weak warm front to develop. Now as that does so, that's going to bring the chance for some cloud cover and some showers, especially early on Sunday. But then high pressure is going to come out of Canada, and it's essentially going to squash this system, keeping it towards the south. That's going to mean more sunshine and clearing skies for us as we head into Monday, but temperatures are going to be a lot cooler. Now, as we go through the next 8 to 14 days, we actually have a decent probability of seeing above normal precipitation. Of course, we're watching this very closely when it comes to the flooding. Of course, we've got a couple dry days in our forecast here, but this is from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and lots of Wisconsin is under that moderate to major risk for flooding as we go through the spring, and that shapes up a lot with the area rivers that are expected to see moderate to major flood stage as we go through the spring. We've seen some of this already, but we just may not be done yet. There's still some snowpack to our north. That water still has to melt, and then it actually has to travel towards the south. So that's something I know a lot of folks are concerned about. We'll be watching that and keeping you guys up to date. Temperatures as we go throughout the morning will warm up towards 40 degrees. We will top out right around 46 as we move into the afternoon. Plenty of sunshine around, and then we get a little bit warmer as we head into your Saturday. That's where we'll see those highs right around 50 degrees, 51 moving into Sunday. Of course, we'll have that chance for some rain, and then Monday will actually be a little bit of a struggle to get out of the 30s, but we do rebound perhaps by next Thursday, coming close to 60 before more chances for rain and another cold front do arrive by next weekend. Here's your pet walk. I know, from Fort Atkinson, always beautiful. If you're out walking dogs this afternoon around 3 o'clock, expect those temperatures around 44 degrees.
Looks like Decory will be outside for sure.
I bet.
All right, thank you, Chris.
My pleasure.
Morning Sprint's coming up next right here on News 3 Now this morning. .53, time for the morning sprint. Chris has another nice spring day in store for your Friday.
And Christina Laurie has more on some of the resources available for families in our area with Down syndrome. But we start overseas in Afghanistan, where we're waiting to learn more about 2 American service members who were killed in action overnight. Those names have not been released until their families can be notified. Right now, it's unknown exactly where it happened or who they were fighting at the time. There are about 14,000 service members still in Afghanistan, helping local forces fight the Islamic State.
It has been 1 week since a gunman opened fire on a pair of mosques in New Zealand, killing 50 people. And earlier today, that country remembered the victims with 2 minutes of silence following the Muslim call to prayer. Funerals for some of those victims did begin this week. The memorial comes a day after New Zealand's prime minister announced she was banning the type of military-grade weapons used in that attack.
Temperatures this morning starting out in the mid-30s. We sit at 35 right now in Madison, Lone Rock at 33, and Janesville at 32 this morning. But we all do begin to warm up, especially as that sun continues to rise. Plenty of sunshine out there today. We'll see those temperatures topping out around 46 this afternoon.
Thank you, Chris. 3 men are in the Rock County Jail this morning after a human trafficking investigation there. David Hanley, Paul Rott of Janesville, and Keith Dabbs from Delavan are all accused of soliciting prostitution. They showed up to a hotel where police were stationed. Janesville police say as many as 30 men unknowingly reached out to undercover cops requesting sex acts.
Miller Coors is taking Anheuser-Busch to court over Bud Light's advertising campaign, criticizing Miller for using corn syrup in its beer. Those TV ads and billboards have been running since Super Bowl Sunday. Miller does use corn syrup as a fermentation aid, but none of it is ever left in the final product. Miller Coors says Anheuser-Busch is taking advantage of health-conscious people who may confuse regular corn syrup with the high fructose corn syrup that's used in soda.
We expect Republicans at the state capitol to ask for a stay after a Dane County judge struck down the laws passed during December's lame duck session. That ruling did come down yesterday. Within hours, Governor Tony Evers ordered the Attorney General to pull the state out of the federal lawsuit challenging the Affordable Care Act. That's something he vowed to do on the campaign trail but was prohibited to do under the lame duck laws.
Earlier in the program, we introduced you to Augie Shotwell, the 3-year-old thriving with Down syndrome. Now, Augie's mom, Melissa, calls Madison a wonderful community to raise a child with Down syndrome. 1 in 700 babies is born with it. The Madison Area Down Syndrome Society provides a long list of local resources. So does Gigi's Playhouse. You can find links to those and Augie's full story up on our website, channel3000.com.
Thank you, Christina. Mayor Paul Soglin says police calls to Tree Lane apartments have gone down in recent weeks, adding the city is, quote, through the worst of it when it comes to problems there. The mayor says the situation is starting to improve, in part due to added security and case management, which the city is now paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for. Officials say 2 tenants have been evicted from the apartments, but the majority of residents there are good tenants who pay their rent.
After a year out of the tournament, the Wisconsin Badgers are back in the March Madness action, taking on Oregon in the first round of the NCAA tournament this afternoon. Tip-off against the Ducks is right around 3:30 on TBS. Oregon is the 12 seed, riding the tournament into the tournament, I should say, on an 8-game win streak. 4 of their 5 starters are listed at 6'9". The team's known for really solid defense. Sports Director Jay Wilson, though, is reminding us the last 2 times Wisconsin beat Oregon in the tournament, they went to the Final Four.
All right, 6:57 your time now. Let's turn it over to Josh Tim with a look at your first alert traffic on this Friday. Hey, Josh.
Yeah, picking up on the westbound side of the Beltline between Stoughton Road and West Broadway, but so far shouldn't slow you down quite yet. Usual brake lights on inbound John Nolan at Rimrock and Olin Avenue moving into downtown, and other routes, including the interstate, still moving along at the usual speeds with no crashes or delays. Your first alert traffic, I'm Josh Tim.
Thank you, Josh.
And we will continue to see plenty of sunshine out there today. Temperatures warming up into the middle 40s.
Have a fantastic weekend. We will see you back here on Monday. Go Badgers.